The city does not cater to you, and that's fine, but pretending it does is a setup for disappointment. What's up, everybody? It's Henry, the man caught between generations. Welcome to the Zillennial Nexus. Today I wanted to talk about the child disruption dilemma and being someone who is on their own dealing with disruptive children in public spaces. Because I talked about in my video about my day trip into Boston about how children running around the Moonwalkers floor kind of disrupted the experience. Not to an insane degree, it wasn't like an extreme thing, but just seeing, but just that going on made me wonder, why did the parents bring those kids in the first place? Especially if they probably had to pay money for it, even at 1969, because again, I went on the day that they had the discount. And it really got me thinking about the child-free movement and their fantasy of child-free spaces versus the reality of spaces that are open to the public, and the practicality of prohibiting people under the age of 18 in certain contexts. But before I get into when the burden falls on the parents to police their children's behavior, and when the burden is on the adults who don't want to be disrupted by children to either plan accordingly or accept that something is going to happen or just not leave the house, be sure to give this video a like. Let me know what you think is the appropriate balance for when the burden falls on whom. And don't forget to subscribe for daily videos of cultural commentary from a man caught between generations. Anyway, adults only spaces is what I'm going to call it, because I really hate the term child free. I think that the child free movement can be a little overzealous sometimes when it comes to how they handle in terms of what they wish for and such. Some of them can be a little too harsh against parents when, at a certain point, yes, they do need to police their children's behavior. So I would argue if a child is throwing a temper tantrum, obviously the parents ought to remove their children from the environment, whether it is at a church, grocery store, Moonwalkers, museum, a park, anywhere like that. Obviously, parents should take that child to a different place to let them calm down. And they should obviously be mindful of where their children are and what they are doing. I forgot to mention this earlier. I talked about it in the other video. Public transportation. I really wish that the parents of the kids who had been acting up in the seat behind me, I wish those parents had been more firm on them, had called them out for it. I considered asking them to knock it off, but I decided, and this is the airbender in me speaking, to just move to the different seat when I could. Wasn't worth starting a conflict with anyone. I decided it was best to just move to a different seat and leave it at that. And typically in more minor cases like that, or in larger public accommodations like public transportation or a park or something like that, it's really up to the childless adults to just go somewhere else if they really don't want to have to deal with that. Again, my real problem with the disruptive children in the seats behind me were they were constantly dropping, or I assume throwing, a deck of Uno cards onto the floor that made me wonder if maybe my AirPods had fallen out of my pocket. Spoiler alert, they did not, and as you can see, I have them in right now. But still, I really wish the parents had at least called them out, if not done something to police their behavior. Now, you could probably say, Henry, you should have confronted the parents or the adults in charge. Sure, that might have accomplished something, or it would have created an unnecessary problem. So I decided to just move seats and leave it at that because the train was like half empty. If there was an airplane flight, maybe I would have had the flight attendants call them out or give them the stern warning. I would have acted through the flight attendants. Again, if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I got Airbender for the Avatar Studios official bending quiz. And the fact that I try to avoid conflict where possible is exactly why I got that. Yeah, I agree with the child-free movement that parents should be more mindful of their children's behavior, or should really be more considerate of where they bring their children. Obviously, public transportation, that's something that they can't exactly make adults only. Grocery stores. I remember one said that she wished for an adults only grocery store, which that is not going to happen. I'm pretty sure that would violate some kind of civil rights law. And quite frankly, it would not be profitable to the store. So that's why I say, for the most part, the burden is on the childless, child free adults to figure it out. You know, again, parents should be mindful of their children's behavior and immediately take them somewhere out of the way if they are acting up or being disruptive. I would even I would even argue that maybe there are certain things they should not bring their kids to, usually anything that involves sitting still and being quiet. Like Moonwalkers, yeah, that is not the kind of thing where you just let your kids run wild and free. Maybe if public transportation had the playgrounds like they do in the Nordic country from that Ashley Embers video, possibly I could see it happening. I could see it being an alright thing. I'm sure that would have made them less energetic when it came to Moonwalkers. Unfortunately, it is what it is, and I, as the adult who was there on my own to enjoy Moonwalkers, except that there was going to be some level of disruption because I went on a Sunday afternoon. Maybe if I'd gone at night, that wouldn't have happened, but that would have overlapped with adult night at the Museum of Science. So anyway, my main point is that the burden is on the childless slash child-free adult to accept that disruptions are going to happen at anything that doesn't explicitly prohibit anyone under the age of 18, like adult night at the Museum of Science. So basically, if you go to the museum during normal hours, or if you go to Moonwalkers in the afternoon, or if you go anywhere that is open to the public, like the Boston Common or the Boston Public Garden, or to a supermarket, or to if you get on any form of public transportation, bus, train, airplane, there are going to be people with their children. Children can be wildly unpredictable. The burden is on you to stay as far away from them as possible if you really don't want to have to listen to anything like that. Or if it's a case like when I was on the train and those two kids behind me were making me start to think I was dropping my AirPods or something like that. They drove me insane to the point that I had to change seats as soon as the train made a stop because I wasn't going to tolerate that. I also wasn't going to confront the parents for what was ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, just a half hour or so of a train ride. So I accepted the burden of just getting up and moving to a different seat. The burden is also on the childless adults or the adults who don't want to be around kids to strategically plan their outings. So, in the case of movies, if it's a more child friendly movie, like what's playing right now? Or any movie that adults are likely to bring children to, whether it's Superman, that Fantastic Four movie, or anything not rated R. I'm sorry, the burden is on you to find a late night screening or to go during school hours. Obviously, at this time of year, that's not exactly an option because school's out for summer. Of course, at this point, I think some of them are starting to go in. Some of the schools are starting to get back in session, or they will in the next couple weeks, at least in some parts of the country. Greater Boston area, not until later in August, early September. And hey, when I went on Tuesday, July 1st to see F1, there was like one family, I think. The three that I talked about in that video I did about reading the fine print, that trio were all adults. I mean, I guess at that point the question would be, why weren't they at work? But yeah, you have to be strategic about how you do this. Or in the case of something like the supermarket, the burden is on you to order same day pickup or delivery if you feel that strongly about avoiding disruptive children in the store. Again, me personally, what I usually do is, and this is again me being an airbender here, I just go down a different aisle and then come back when they move on to a different one. I am extremely evasive. And then ultimately, if you don't want to take the risk, if you don't want to roll the dice on whether there will be disruptive children in the thing that you're going to, whether it's a movie, something like the Moonwalkers, or let's say a zoo, aquarium, or museum, the burden is on you to find a period when they do adults only, like adult night in the museum I just mentioned. Actually, funny side tangent here, I just remembered. The Children's Museum in Boston held an adults only night last month. I'm not kidding. They actually did that. Comment if you think it's because the birth rate is so low that they have to find some way to extract money from adults, or if you just think that it was a nice little fundraiser and they were just using the space to their full advantage. Comment which you think is more likely. Personally, I'm inclined to say they wanted to raise some money, but Tim Pool might be onto something about how there aren't enough kids to market to, so they have to get their money's worth from adults. But yeah, if you're not able to find anything like that and you're not willing to take the risk, you're just gonna have to stay home. I don't know what else to say. Even when I went to adult night, that didn't solve 100% of my problems compared to when I went on Halloween and there were two school field trips running around the exhibit halls. When I went on Halloween, I had to stand in the back of the Theater of Electricity because it was crowded by the time I had arrived. And this time it happened again because I just didn't get there on time. Turns out the problem wasn't a whole bunch of kids, it was just people in general, or my sense of timing, or my choice of timing, I think would be the better way to put it. So, pro tip if you want good seats at the lightning show at the Theater of Electricity at the Museum of Science Boston, go at least half an hour early before the show starts. Explore the Mathematica section that's right behind it. And then ready to when you're ready to go, you can grab a seat up front. I have got to remember to do that next time. Not only is this a public service announcement, travel hack for anyone out there, this is a reminder to me to time going into Mathematica accordingly so that you can actually get a front row seat next time. Anyway, the point is, if you're an adult who goes to public accommodations, a child-free adult, childless, or if you want to avoid disruptive children, the burden is on you to plan accordingly or just stay home. Buyer beware. Public spaces are wildly unpredictable. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it here for the video and just reiterate, yes, the burden is on parents to police their children's behavior and make sure that they aren't doing anything insane like some of the crazier stories I've heard about from child-free YouTubers or TikTokers. But public spaces can't always do adults only environments like adult night at the museum. That's what I'm retroactively going to call it from here on out. Adult night at the museum. So yeah, I'm going to leave it here for the video. Remember, the city does not cater to you, and that's fine, but pretending it does is a setup for disappointment. Be sure to give this video a like. Comment, what do you think about all this? Or if you want to tell your own stories about dealing with disruptive children in public spaces and how you either avoid the situation or tried confronting the parents, I'd love to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for daily videos of cultural commentary from a man caught between generations. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.